Hello, and welcome to the Easy English Stories home channel. Today, we're going to help you fine-tune your English listening skills through immersive, practical strategies and storytelling. If you're someone who's ever struggled to understand English at full speed or has been caught off guard by the way native speakers blend words together, you're not alone. In fact, most English learners report that listening is one of the hardest skills to master, with nearly 65% saying they find native conversations difficult to follow. Today we're going on a deep into the art of English listening. I'll be sharing why listening practice is so important, what makes it uniquely challenging, and of course, specific techniques you can start using immediately to improve. I'll also be weaving in personal stories and long, concrete examples so you get a true sense of how to make listening practice part of your daily routine. Chapter 1. The Foundation of Listening Practice. To kick things off, let's talk about why listening is so important. Listening is one of the 4 core skills in language learning, alongside reading, writing, and speaking, but it has a unique role. You see, listening is the first language skill we develop naturally. Think about it. Babies don't start talking or reading. They start by listening to the sounds around them, absorbing language in a passive but powerful way. It's only after months of listening that they begin to try forming words themselves. For English learners, this concept holds true as well. Before you can become comfortable with speaking, it's vital to immerse yourself in the language by listening as much as possible. Studies show that people who prioritize listening see a 40% faster improvement in their overall language proficiency compared to those who focus on other skills alone. Chapter 2. The Importance of English Listening Practice. Let's talk about why listening is so crucial. Often, English learners focus a lot on speaking or writing, but listening? It can sometimes be the skill that makes or breaks your ability to communicate. Listening is actually the gateway to understanding language in a real, dynamic context. Imagine you're in a cafe and overhear a conversation. You're not directly involved, but by simply listening, you pick up on phrases, intonations, and vocabulary that people use in everyday conversation. Listening helps you learn authentic language. Textbooks may teach you proper grammar and vocabulary, but real-life conversations, they're filled with nuances, slang, and colloquial expressions that only make sense when you hear them in context. For example, did you know that around 70% of conversations in English include phrasal verbs? Phrasal verbs, like give up or take off, don't always follow predictable grammar rules, but they're everywhere in English speech. Listening is also essential for pronunciation. When you listen, you're not just picking up vocabulary, but also the rhythm, tone, and pace of native speakers. Many English learners struggle with these subtle elements of the language. But when you actively listen, you can learn to mimic native pronunciation and intonation patterns. And that's what can help you sound fluent, even if your vocabulary is limited. Chapter 3. Why listening is challenging for English learners. So, why is listening so challenging? Well, English is full of unique quirks that make it hard to follow, especially for beginners. For one, English is a stress-timed language. What does that mean? In stress-timed languages like English, certain words, the content words, like nouns, main verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, are emphasized, while function words, like articles, prepositions, and conjunctions, tend to blend together. In contrast, syllable-timed languages like Spanish emphasize nearly every syllable equally. For a Spanish speaker learning English, this rhythm can be tough to adjust to. Take this example. I could have gone to the store. When spoken naturally, a native English speaker might say, I could have gone to the store. If you're not used to this pattern, it can sound like an entirely different sentence. Let me give you a personal story here. When I was working with a student named Lee, he initially struggled with understanding even simple sentences in fast-paced English. Lee had excellent grammar and a good vocabulary, but he felt overwhelmed every time he listened to native speakers. What was happening was that he was trying to catch every single word instead of focusing on the main words carrying the meaning. So, I advised him to focus only on the content words. Over time, he realized he didn't need to understand every word to get the gist of what was being said. Chapter 4. Techniques for Effective Listening Practice. Now that we understand why listening is important, let's dive into how you can practice effectively. First, there's passive listening and active listening. 1. Passive listening. This is when you play English audio in the background while doing other activities. Maybe you're cooking, cleaning, or exercising. You're not actively trying to understand everything, but your brain is still picking up patterns. Studies suggest that even passive listening can improve vocabulary retention by around 30% over time. 2. Active listening. Active listening is where the real learning happens. Here, you focus entirely on the audio, trying to understand and engage with it. This might mean listening to a podcast episode and pausing to replay sections, or even writing down words you don't know. One great technique for active listening is shadowing. Here's how it works. As you listen, you repeat what the speaker says as closely as possible. This method not only improves comprehension, but also helps you with pronunciation. Start by listening to a short sentence, pause, and repeat. If you can, record yourself to check how close you sound to the original. Another method is transcription practice. Choose a short audio clip, maybe 1 minute long. Listen to it several times and try to write down exactly what you hear. You'll probably notice that certain words are harder to catch. This is normal. Transcription forces you to listen closely, training your ear to detect sounds that might otherwise slip by. Chapter 4. Techniques for Improving English Listening Skills. Now let's move into some actionable techniques. First up, shadowing. This is where you listen to a sentence or a short phrase and then immediately try to repeat it, mimicking the pronunciation, rhythm, and tone. Shadowing is particularly effective for 2 reasons. 1, it forces you to listen very closely, and 2, it trains your brain to recognize common patterns in English speech. Even 5 minutes of shadowing per day can significantly improve your listening and speaking skills. Another powerful method is chunking. In chunking, you break down sentences into manageable pieces or chunks. Instead of focusing on each word, you group words that naturally belong together. For example, in the sentence, "Would you like to go out for coffee?" Instead of hearing each word separately, you hear it as, "Would you like to go out for coffee?" This is closer to how native speakers process sentences and can help you keep up with the flow of conversation. Example. Technique. I remember another student, Elena, who loved watching English TV shows. She would often try to watch full episodes in one go, but she found it overwhelming. So I recommended that she start by watching short clips and focusing on just a few chunks at a time. She would watch a scene, pause, and repeat the lines in chunks. Eventually, her listening skills improved so much that she could watch entire episodes without feeling lost. Chapter 5. Real-life materials for listening practice. When it comes to listening practice, variety is key. Exposing yourself to different kinds of materials will prepare you for a broader range of situations. Let's go through some of the best types of content for English listening practice. 1. Podcasts. Podcasts are excellent for learning English because they're available on virtually any topic. When you listen to something you enjoy, you're more engaged and you naturally retain more information. For example, if you're interested in history, you could listen to an English history podcast. The key is to listen more than once, first for the general meaning, then for details, and finally to catch any new vocabulary. 2. Audiobooks. Audiobooks are another wonderful resource, especially for beginners or intermediate learners. Since they are read aloud slowly and clearly, it's easier to follow along. Choose a book you're interested in and listen to it chapter by chapter. Some learners see an improvement in listening comprehension of up to 50% within a few months by consistently listening to audiobooks. 3. Movies and TV shows. While movies and TV shows can be challenging at first, they are full of natural conversational English. Start by watching with subtitles, then re-watch without subtitles. This gives you a chance to recognize patterns and understand conversational flow. 4. News clips. News is slightly more formal and slower paced, making it perfect for learners. Plus, news stories repeat key information, which reinforces vocabulary. Listening to the news daily can expand your vocabulary and help you get used to different accents if you try listening to broadcasts from the US, the UK, or Australia. Chapter 6. Practical steps for creating a listening routine. Let's talk about how you can build a consistent listening routine. It's all about breaking down your practice into manageable daily goals. Here's a sample routine for someone aiming to do 30 minutes of listening practice a day. Morning. Listen to 5 to 10 minutes of a podcast on a topic you enjoy. Take note of any new phrases. Afternoon. Watch a short video clip, like a news story or an interview. Try to listen for details and note any words you don't know. Evening. Practice shadowing with a 5-minute audio clip. Repeat each sentence to match the pronunciation and rhythm as closely as possible. After a few weeks, you'll likely find that you're able to follow conversations more easily, and your confidence in listening will grow. Think of it like going to the gym. Daily, focused practice builds strength over time. Chapter 7. Overcoming common listening challenges. 1 common challenge English learners face is fast speech, Native speakers tend to blend words and reduce sounds, which can make even simple sentences sound complicated. For example, "Did you eat yet?" can sound like "jeet yet?" A great technique to handle this is selective listening. Focus on catching the key content words that hold the meaning of the sentence. This way, you're not overwhelmed by every single sound. Another challenge is dealing with different accents. English is spoken with a wide variety of accents, from British and Australian to American and Canadian. Each accent has unique characteristics that can be hard to understand if you're only used to one variety. To tackle this, expose yourself to different accents gradually. Start by listening to slower, more formal accents, like BBC News, and then work your way up to more conversational content in different accents. Thank you for joining us on this journey to mastering English listening. Remember, consistent listening practice, paired with the right techniques, will make you a stronger, more confident English listener. Whether you're using podcasts, movies, news, or simply breaking down challenging sentences, each step you take brings you closer to fluency. Keep practicing, stay patient, and remember, every minute of listening counts. Until next time, happy learning.